Welcome back to Coast, newest episode, the third of the reboot, right? Third, I think. Today we're going to be going over our offensive tackles. We went through six, so sorry if you wanted 25 each, like Connor and Trevor. That'll be next year. We'll get on their level soon enough. We're just trying to baby steps here and hoping some people grow with us as well. Um,
Absolutely.
Tackles first, and then we're going to get into the edges or opposition. So yeah, 6 at 6, same thing as the last when we did DBs, or I apologize, when we did wide receivers. Ed took on three guys, I took on three guys, and we're just going to tell you our personal opinions on them. Do you want to go first with any of your guys, or
Sure. Yeah, I can start it off. Uh, right out the gates, I know this is a guy that didn't get a full 2024 season, but I'm going to start with Josh Simmons from Ohio State, 6'5", 310. Like I said, he didn't have a full calendar year, but I did watch a handful of games before he got injured in that Oregon game. And I mean, me personally, I think he would have been tackle one in the draft. I think he would have been a top five pick, franchise left tackle. But I think, obviously he's sliding because there's uncertainty with him bouncing back from the injury. I know the pro day is going to change a lot of that, but
I
from what I
mean,
did, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. I mean, the fact that he can even get back to his pro day is
Yeah,
kind of incredible because he had a
right.
what torn patella, I think. But
Torn
sorry,
ACL,
yeah,
torn
I
ACL.
digress. I mean, the fact because you said the Oregon game, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, because I was
But
6 games into the season, so it's not like it's not like it happened before the season, but that's well enough into the season where it's impressive to even be back before the draft. Because a lot of guys that do that, they're dropping and they're also not even starting being ready for training camp. But in saying that, I mean, from what I did watch, like I said, I watched like five other games of tape of him from 24. I was gonna dip into 23, but I just ended up going off the tape I saw in 24 because it was a decent amount of games, even though not all of them were against elite competition. Some of them were against like Akron and Western Michigan, stuff like that. But they're still quality programs, so I'm not gonna poo-poo that. But what I did take away from it, he's obviously a big, smooth, fast left tackle. He got out to the second level in a hurry. He was one of those guys that you saw and he just took off when it was a run play. And I mean, not even just for a tackle or for a guy his size. He's quick. He's a quick athlete and he's gonna make a difference in the NFL. He had great foot control, had great feet, great hands, and he's gonna have, a solid time when he gets to the NFL controlling that line of scrimmage when he is a cornerstone for somebody's offensive line. Don't know where he'll land. We'll see how far he slides if he does really slide that far. Maybe because he is going to have his pro day, he's only going to fall to maybe, top 10 instead of really kind of dropping down to where we had him. I think we had him going to Pittsburgh in our mock, but I definitely see him as a top five prospect in this draft, and he would be my tackle. He's my tackle one no matter what. I think he's more than capable of being a number one at that position.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's. I mean, you hear the slide because of the injury and whatnot, but it's hard to like when he has good tape. You know what I mean? And yeah, he only played 6 games, but when there is actual good tape, and you said on the Oregon game, like it solid.
It
So
stood out. Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, that's he's yeah. I think I heard Nate Tice say that his dad said that that's his number two overall player in the entire draft, which is kind of crazy because that means that would be either over Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. But he's been a coach for a very long time, so you kind of got to take what he says, and it's all opinion based, right? That's what this time of year is. So yeah, Josh Simmons, Ed certified, OT1 certified. Um, Certified stalwart on an offensive line coming soon to we'll see.
we'll see.
On the 28th or the 20th, I think it's the 20 or the 27th. This starts the Thursday, I believe.
Yeah,
Let
a
me just
couple
double.
weeks away.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's quick, honestly. It's coming up.
And it felt like an eternity a couple of weeks ago, and now it feels like it's right around the corner.
Yeah. The 24th to the 26th, actually.
24th to the 26th. That's what it was. That's what I was thinking. The 26th. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because yeah, okay.
Yeah, a couple days off, but yeah, you guys know. I'm sure you already knew that. So I'm gonna go with my favorite tackle next, assuming that you're
Ooh,
done with the glowing recommendation of Simmons.
yeah, full
Um,
stamp.
Gotcha. Ed stamp of approval. So I'm gonna go with Membu. So I watched Will Campbell, Gray Zabel, and then Membu. For him being 21 years old, it's kind of pretty ridiculous and he's like Simmons. I didn't see Simmons, so I can't compare them directly. But he moves really well for being 330 pounds. And he's 21. He's 6'4", which you'd want maybe a little taller, but that's not like awful for an offensive tackle. And then I think he has a crazy arm length as well as a wingspan too. So that always helps as well. Down blocking, he kind of just destroys the entire line of scrimmage. He deals really well with speed rushers because he's very like he can get to his spot quick from what I saw. I don't know. So I watched the South Carolina game and you know that their edges were Kennard, I believe, and Stewart. Like that might have been the best duo in the country, and I wanted to watch Membu against them because of that fact. You know, their whole D line,
Right.
South Carolina's D line, is ridiculous as well. So he anchored well against power. The speed rushers he kind of neutralized. I felt like he never really got out of his body, right? So like sometimes
Okay.
when you get too on your toes, that's when you get that rip down and you just kind of get ahead of your skis and whatnot. He definitely always tries to find work, and for him being 6'4", it makes sense. But he plays with very pad level. That's something that I really enjoyed about his game that I didn't about some of the other guys that I watched. But yeah, he's just kind of like Simmons. Like he has this one rep where he's pulling against Missouri, not Missouri. I'm sorry, against I think it was South Carolina, and he just destroys. It's just impressive for someone
Yeah.
that large to move around
Right.
that well, and again, always tries to find work. Always like he's kind of what you want. So for me, and there's nothing wrong with Zabel or Campbell, but I mean at the end of the day, Mambu's just I think he's got it. And I think you had him going fourth on our mock to the Pats,
Yeah.
and at the time I was kind of like, well, it seems a little high for Membu, but after watching his tape, I'm like, yeah, I mean he could go third to the Giants because y'all need a right tackle too. Not not as dire as the Pats,
No,
but
but it's. I mean, when it's a can't miss prospect, I mean, it's if they feel the way that some do about him, then I mean, I would not put it past them to take him if that's a situation where they feel that he's the best available. Because, like we said, if we've got him going at 4, 3 shouldn't be much of a stretch because obviously they should be taking the best player available no matter what. If they feel that's him on the board, I wouldn't really question it. Like you said, low balanced attack. He's got great feet. All just fully all around, he was very balanced as far as his approach to pass blocking, run blocking, all of it. That's something that not a lot of these guys have. And I know you brought up the size, but I mean, everybody in this draft seems to be around that like 6'4", 6'5" range, but his arm length seems to kind of be a little bit better than some of these other guys that it could be a concern with.
yeah, I think it really helps with the speed rushers because he can kind of like get his hands on obviously quicker because his arms are longer, and then also like absorb more. Yeah, I mean he's my out of the tackles that I watched, he's my favorite, and if anyone recommends, I mean the only place that he should move is left tackle. Excuse me.
Yeah, I agree.
'Cause at the end of the day, but also nowadays, I mean if you play the Steelers, got T.J. Watt on that side, and you know what I mean. A lot of
Yeah.
I believe Nick Bosa rushes out like it it makes sense to have, if you can, two good tackles. That's pretty much all I got on Membu. So who's your next? We'll just go back and forth.
Next one's going to be Kelvin Banks from Texas. Another guy where arm length has been a little bit of a concern through the process, much like somebody on your list and Will Campbell. I didn't come away feeling like I know we had talked about this before the recording started. I didn't come away feeling the same way I did about Will Campbell with a lot of the size and length concerns. A lot of the size and length concerns with Campbell, I saw it on the tape. He looked small. He looked like a smaller guard. You could see the issues with the length and the arms. With Banks, it didn't come across like it didn't come across like that. And he's the same exact size, 6'4", 320-ish. But I saw a lot of comparisons to Elijah Vera Tucker, which I kind of agree with. I
That's a
feel
great
like
one.
yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys that the versatility's there where if a team's not bought into him as being a tackle, he's definitely going to succeed in either place. He can be a legit guard for a team, but I still think on paper, I think he's got it to be a tackle. I mean, I saw a lot of great balance when it came to pass rush attack with his pass blocking. And he was fantastic with run blocking from what I saw. So that would be perfect. If he was, more of a pull guard on a team. So I saw nothing wrong with anything that people were calling out as far as like the size. Like I understand what they're saying, but I didn't find them as being anything that was like too concerning. Where it's like, oh yeah, he can't play tackle. I saw it as like more he can play tackle, but like he might be a stronger guard than anything. But I didn't see him as being a weak spot on the line when he was at tackle because he did play nothing but tackle, all 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, and you know how I feel, and I know you feel the same way. It's like give him a shot. Why not give him a shot? And unless you have your tackles set and you drafted him as a guard and your tackles like San Francisco, for instance, if they drafted him, used him as a guard, he could get around in space, do all that type of stuff. But then when Trent retires, move him to left tackle and see if he can hang there. Or
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I mean, give him a shot. They played left tackle in the SEC. He played left tackle in the SEC. I'm yeah, in the SEC. That almost got me. Texas. I was about to say I was like, no, not the Big 12. See, but yeah, no, I definitely agree. I definitely or not. I don't. Sorry, everybody. My brain just malfunctioned for a moment.
You're good.
I don't agree. You know how we feel about that. Give him a shot,
Right.
let him go,
Yeah.
and then worst case scenario, he ends up as a above average, if not very good guard. Because, like you said, that's why. Like if they can play tackle, they have the athleticism, they have the movement skills, they have all that type of stuff, and bringing that into a place where you don't need it as much at a guard. That's where you get the guys. I mean, that's what separates Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, and I'm not saying Banks will be, or any of the guys that we might recommend to potentially try to kick in. But yeah, no, that's definitely good to hear that he's not because like Zabel kind of kick him in the guard.
Yeah.
I
I didn't want to bring him up because I knew you were going to bring him up. He's on your list, but yeah, unlike a guy like Greg Zabel, who played against a different set of prospects coming from the conference that he's in. Banks did play against a lot of high level talent in the SEC, and they also play. I mean, they played Michigan and Ohio State, and he played really well against Ohio State in that semifinal. Even though they lost that game, he played really well against them.
that whole
I liked him.
kept up with Ohio State. It's a shame that there were some missteps by
Yeah,
a couple people. But yeah, so as long as you're good, I'm gonna go with my next guy, which would be Will Campbell. Like you said earlier, maybe their guards are 350 pounds on the interior on LSU. South Carolina and Ole Miss have some heifers at D line, which I know they both do. Like Walter Nolan and why am I forgetting the other one from South Carolina? But yes, defensive linemen, not edges. Uh, Shoot, that's gonna really bother me. Forgive me, everybody. This is terrible podcasting. But yeah,
TJ Sanders.
PJ Sanders. There it is. No, you're good. I appreciate you saving me time and the attention span of our five viewers. But yeah, Will Campbell. I I don't know. Like there were a bunch of times where I was kind of scratching my head at he's the only person that I've had thus far in what we've been doing, which isn't that many players. I know other people do 400 players, but we don't have. It's not our profession. So forgive us for next year. We'll try to hit 100 players each, and the same players so we can talk. But we're just bear with us. Bear with us in our growth stage.
We'll get
Uh,
there.
One thing I did like So he actually did kind of him and the whole LSU offensive line. I guess they went into the game. I heard on the broadcast that they went in the game without a sack, and man, that changed quick against that South Carolina defensive line. He plays a little high. I get he's 6'6", but I don't know. And maybe his coach isn't a stickler because he's at LSU and he's one of the best players in the country regardless. Right? I mean we're picking apart what we're doing essentially the same thing NFL's teams would do. So
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
an amazing player, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to become a front office, part of a front office someday. But yeah, he gets beat just in random like he'll get to a spot and Ole like get the guy around the quarterback and let him run his loop, and then the next play he gets beat really easy with speed. I think consistency I would say would be my biggest not gripe with his play at left tackle. Granted, I also didn't do him any favors by probably two of the more difficult defensive line matches on their schedule with Ole Miss and South Carolina, but he can be set up pretty easy with an inside move because I feel like he's very just trying to get back to his spot. And then they did help him a lot in the South Carolina game. It seemed like with some chippers, backs, all that type of stuff. But I mean, he picks up stunts. He does the thing is when he does good. Sorry, that was a bunch of negative. Now I'm going to do all the positives. He he picks up stunts pretty well when he's not doing whatever. He has great communication. He always, if there's ever someone coming off the edge or whatever, or it looks like it's going to be a corner blitz or a linebacker or safety or whatever, he always, hey, you see this? Okay, cool. Just making sure. He was a very good run blocker, and he's aggressive. And honestly, that's probably my favorite trait in an offensive lineman. I don't necessarily like when they're passive because it's not a passive position, you know. Some of my favorite players of all time, like Marshall Yanda, I mean Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, for more newer guys, and then there's just too many to name over the years. He does a lot well. It's just sometimes I'm like, huh? How did you did that three times in a row, and then the fourth time you get easily beat, and then another thing too that I saw that it's just something that I noticed that popped off the tape was the backs on run plays. So again, he's a very good run blocker. The backs kind of found him quite a bit. I don't know if that was the
Okay.
scheme. I don't know if the backs were whether it was off his inside or outside hip. They kind of just so I don't. It's hard to tell because we don't know like the actual run plays and stuff. I'm not going to act like I do. So I don't know if the back was just trying to find his hole, find his lane, and that's where the lane was, which again speaks to the great run blocking that I saw of him. I definitely would give him a shot at left tackle because I'm not
Okay.
going to be a hypocrite with him specifically, but I do see him being more of a guard at the next level. I think it's the same kind of thing. I know 6'6" is a little tall for guard, but I think if you got him in there, he'd be special because he's a people mover. He can do a lot. Sorry. Let me actually put on do not disturb. Rookie mistake.
No
Focus.
worries.
This is amazing podcasting as well. So, con- congratulations to everyone watching. The great performance by me so far. But yeah, I mean, let him try a guard and then, or I'm sorry, let him try a tackle and then switch him into guard. So,
Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. So yeah, I'm more of a like with Campbell. I think he's a straight up guard, but like
okay.
I'm with you if it's one of those things where like he's obviously produced. Coming from LSU, he's gotten the job done. But my only concern is, and maybe this is because it hits too close to home, but I immediately go to Neil.
That's fair.
So I worry about a guy like that had some similar issues coming out that were ignored because they were like, well, he played for Bama, played in the SEC. He clearly, he clearly is good enough because like he wouldn't be starting on that line if he wasn't. And then, obviously that hasn't translated because people just kind of looked past those red flags. We're like, oh, he's still young and he's bright. He seems like a smart guy, which he was, and he is.
100%. So,
Um, it
so what you're saying is you'd like to wait until his fourth year of his rookie contract to move him to guard and
No,
just
I,
watch.
I want to get out ahead of it. Is what I'm saying.
and just watch him struggle for 3 years.
Get him to guard now. Now. Do it
And
now and avoid the issue that the Giants are going through, where they're
show,
moving him to guard right when they're supposed to be making the decision about his fifth-year option.
yeah, yeah, that's something that we've talked about before off pod, and it's just very interesting that they waited because it was very clear at the front he was in over his head at right tackle.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like they gave him the first year, and I think they actually ended up benching him at one point. And then it's like, I get it. There's the sunk cost fallacy, but at the end of the day, Quentin Nelson was drafted at 4 or 5
Yeah,
overall,
4 or 5. Yeah,
and if Evan Neal could be an All-Pro guard, who cares? Who cares that
yeah,
you drafted him at
right.
4 or 5?
Yeah, get
The whole
over it.
positional value nonsense is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Because if you get a great player, it doesn't fucking matter where he's at,
Right.
you
No,
know.
it doesn't.
But yeah, so Ed is traumatized by the Giants. So move Campbell to guard yesterday.
Yep. Just
um,
draft night. Say it. Make
Will
sure.
Campbell
Make sure
guard
Goodell is saying guard.
left guard for. But yeah, yeah, we'll give him a couple months. But guard teams. Everyone. It's not just us thinking that as well. Everyone seems to think he's a guard.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that happens. And speaking of overreacting to right tackles, my next tackle is Josh Connerly.
My God,
Um,
look at that transition. We're making something out of ourselves here.
yeah, I think he can be. I think he can be a right guard, even though Mike Green made him look like a chump in senior day practices. But I don't think that's really the case. Um, I think that was a huge overreaction. Like I said, I wasn't just being sarcastic. It really is a huge overreaction. I think he's very explosive, athletic, great feet. Um, he did a great job being able to control pass blocking. Wasn't that great with run blocking for a player that seems to be kind of well balanced and in control during the pass blocking sets that he had. Still very young though, so I mean that's a big part of it too. The fact that he's not like heavy footed, I think is really a good thing going for him as far as like being able to maybe maintain that left tackle spot depending on where he goes. If he's drafted into a place where they need a left tackle, I think he can grow into that as far as like getting those um getting those reps under their belt, and really kind of evolving as a player, even though obviously he's been playing in a on a team that's expecting a lot from him, being at Oregon. But we also saw a guy like Ole Fashano, who came in with a lot of red flags, but
Yeah.
also was drafted a lot higher than where Connerly's probably going to go, and he was kind of treated like a project with the Jets. And I think a team can kind of take that same approach with Connerly and say, like, we're taking a guy that's not a finished project. He's really young. He's got a lot of great upside. He's got a lot of green flags. The red flags can be fixed. And I saw a lot of that in the competition that I saw him against. I mean, I watched him against Boise State. I watched him against Ohio State twice, one of the regular season game and the quarterfinals, and then also against Michigan and Purdue. And I mean, those are all teams that have high level edge rushers coming after him. So I felt comfortable after watching him, and I think people overreacted a little bit too much when he got kind of beat up by a guy that's also going to be a first round pick. This wasn't a guy that was
Yeah.
a late riser sleeper. Like this is a guy that had 17 sacks last year,
Yeah.
um, and was a legit terror to every offensive tackle in the league. So I'm not going to put a lot of stock into that one exchange.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, he was playing right tackle. That's probably the first time he's ever had to play right tackle in his life. And it's very rare that you can switch.
Yeah.
Like I know everyone's just, oh, just put him on the right if he's not. Oh, he played left in college. Put him at right because we need a right tackle. That's not a given. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen all the time. And then you mentioned Fashanu. I think his biggest red flag from last year is that he wasn't good at run blocking, right? He was more of one of those dancing bear like passive tackles, but he looked fine in New York. It, I, I'm not saying that Oregon's offensive line coach is bad, but a new one might help. Maybe he might learn. And then not only that, an Oregon offensive line coach isn't going to know as much as. So if Connerly gets drafted to, say, the Chiefs, or I don't think the Eagles need anybody anytime soon, but you know what I'm saying? Like
You never
if they
know.
get to a place where, or Minnesota, if he, I don't know, wherever, I don't know, they don't need a left tackle either, but you know what I'm trying to say. If they go somewhere where there are legit offensive linemen, that's going to help
Right.
him immediately as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, Roser Garden last year said the same thing with Ronnie Stanley. You know, without him, without Linderbaum, without the guys, and it's just much easier. So,
Yeah,
uh,
because like you said, it's like it's one thing to have a good coach. Even in college, you can have a good coach that makes, a difference. In the NFL, you can have a good coach, but you also have those guys that have been doing this for a long time that you can pick the brains of. In college, there's no guy to pick the brains of that's on the same line with you.
yeah,
Like
unless
how
you
many? I mean, because like realistically, how many guys are on the offensive line that are playing more than 3, 4 years in college?
exactly
It's very rare. Occasionally, you get those guys that are playing 5 years, but those guys probably aren't a talent that you want to really be taking those tips from anyway, because they're probably there for 5 years for a reason. But in the NFL, you've got these career guys, like you said, if he ends up in the right situation, he's got these career guys that he can just listen, learn from, watch from soup to nuts, not only just on the field, what they do as far as like execution, but like what they're doing off the field, what they're doing in the film room, what they're doing in the weight room, like all
a
of it.
hundred.
And so, I mean, especially with him being so young. I mean, I think he's just freshly 21, so he's pretty young coming in. Not
You
that
got both.
not that all of these players aren't pretty young coming in, because most of them are, especially in the positions that we're going through. But like that's a big thing too. He's young and he's got a long way to go. I think honestly, give him that time to do that.
I mean, why not? You're not going to move him. He doesn't, from what I have seen of his, he doesn't look like one of those candidates at guard, in my
No, he
opinion.
doesn't. No.
He's a little more slender. I don't know, but yeah, I and then I've also heard people have been really high on him. Again, like well-respected people who are saying Connerly is like a top 15 or what.
I mean, yeah, before the season, you could have probably flip flopped him and Membo, and that's kind of where he's sitting coming in, because it was kind of Simmons and then Connerly were kind of 1-2 coming into the season, at least from what I remember from a lot of the
Yeah, well, because Membu,
analysts.
he was a little. I think that was his first year starting,
Maybe, yeah.
if I'm not
I know he
mistaken.
was still like a top 5 guy, but he wasn't like a surefire like number 1 pick like these two guys were.
Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't. I mean, tackle one. If he's tackle one now, since Simmons is hurt, I'm scared of that, right? So I'm going to transition to Gray Zabel because I feel like we sufficiently covered everybody. Uh,
Yes.
uh, I kind of want him at guard or center immediately, and you touched the nail on the head earlier. Unfortunately, it's just lower level competition. He did dominate. You know, when I watched North Dakota State, he's on North Dakota State. When I watched the championship against Montana State, he was very dominant, moving people around, always looking for work. He had a block where he literally had the guy, took him to the bench, sat him down. He got a penalty for it, unfortunately. The refs need to let the boys play this soft 2025 football, or 2024 football, I should say. But yeah, I just think he moves incredibly well for someone. It's wild how many, because all of my guys, like Campbell's an incredible mover, Membu, and then Zabel as well was very impressive, which makes sense why everyone wants to move him to guard, especially for like a zone scheme or where you can get him out in space and really just have him go. You know, he'll be a definitely a caravan.
Yeah.
Um, and then the flexibility with him as well. He's played, I believe, every position off the offensive line except for maybe center. And I know at the Senior Bowl he had a bunch of center reps.
Yeah, they
Uh,
did.
so, and then that's another thing too. He held up at the Senior Bowl. That's kind of all this. Like you want to see him dominate. He did that, and then okay, well now we have because the Senior Bowl had probably the best. I mean, when's the last time the Senior Bowl had a top 15 pick in Mike Green?
Yeah,
I
I
could
can't remember.
I could be wrong, but normally edges that go top 15 aren't in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
right.
arguably, I mean, outside of Carter, he might be edge too, depending on your flavor and what you like, or if you like. I know Stewart, but yeah. Long story longer on Zabel. I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be just a like solid guard. His floor on the interior is gonna be good, and then I mean, shit, as someone who, Pat McCarry, he's played every position on the offensive line for the Ravens. Having someone like that to where in a pinch, so yeah, maybe you have him at your guard spot, your tackle goes down. Okay, he's played tackle before because it's all about having the best five. I mean, I'm sure he can learn center. He seems like a smart guy. So I think that's just all, I think he's kind of I mean, a unicorn in that sense, because all of these guys you would have to see if they could play other positions. Well, we know that Zabel can play guard, and we know he can play right tackle or left tackles. He's kind of a just uh, can't miss, I guess you could say. Not, I don't want to say can't miss because that's unfair to him, but it's kind of like with Travis Hunter. If he doesn't do well at corner, then you move him to wide receiver, right? So if Zabel doesn't do well at right guard, try him at center. If he doesn't do well at right guard, try him at left guard. See, so you can kind of find a home, and he's athletic enough and moves well enough for how big he is, and he's a good anchor. Like I don't know, I understand why he's getting first round buzz out of North Dakota State because it just makes perfect sense. Because at the end of the day, can you move around? Can you get to a spot quickly? Do you have good feet? Do you have good hands? You got a little nasty in you. All of these guys, obviously, that we've talked about thus far, are kind of fit that bill, you know. But yeah, Zabel, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes as early as like. I mean, the Bengals could use him. I know they like beefier guards, but
Yeah,
so
I think we had him going somewhere in the 20s. I think we had him going to Seattle, if I remember correctly.
I was just about to say Seattle would be a perfect spot because they have I think three spots open on their offensive line, and their tackles are
Yeah,
often injured. So
yeah. Once again, they need guard and center help. So
yeah, so I
you
think he's
can you
able.
can try him wherever he works out best. Plug him,
But
play him, and figure it out.
who knows too? Because maybe Membu, Campbell, Banks all go pretty high. That's the beauty of the draft, right? If there's a run on tackles, Zabel, or if there's a run on linemen, Zabel might go top 15 because
Right.
Membu goes, Membu goes one or four to the Pats or three to you guys, and then shit, we need Will Campbell for the Jags, because I think they need interior offensive line help. Because is Scherf back? I don't think he's back yet.
But he was free agent too, wasn't he? Or am I
Yeah,
remembering that? Yeah.
that's what I don't know if they. I mean, they might bring him back, but at the end of the day, they could use somebody. The Raiders, I don't think they need one, but if you can upgrade parts of your offensive line, I don't know. He could. Long story. Yeah, he essentially could do, or any of these guys. I'm sorry. It all depends on who loves what on the NFL draft. So
There's no perfect offensive lines out there.
no, it's very and it's getting more difficult. That's why the Eagles are an apparition. I mean, they're pretty much the standard, right? I can't think of another offensive line that is all five as dominant as the Eagles. Because even the Chiefs, their tackles are left to be desired. Even if Taylor's healthy, uh,
With Tooney being gone.
and Smith is gone
And
too.
Smith, yeah.
So
And then you
that's
got San Francisco's not what it used to be. The
even
Colts the Colts are kind of on the fence even.
Yeah, I mean the Colts comparably. I mean they had the best offensive line in football a little while ago, and then I don't. We turned around and looked, and now they're hemorrhaging town. The Colts are an interesting, interesting thing. But yeah, obviously I've wrapped up Gable pretty sufficiently. You
Hmm.
have one more guy, and then we'll get on into edges.
No, that's it for me.
Oh,
I had
shit.
my
Okay,
three.
yeah, you went first. That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm clearly very observant. So yeah, do you want to go first with edges, or do you want me to start it off?
Sure, why don't I kick it off? So my first edge, I did luck out. I know we talked about this before, getting on. I lucked out because I do have two Georgia boys on my list. I randomized these, and I just happened to end up with the two Georgia boys. I know this player is kind of one of those guys that people have kind of bounced him around from one thing to the other, from linebacker to outside linebacker to edge. But we kept him on the list as far as an edge because we felt that most teams were kind of considering him as such. So Jalen Walker is my first player. I liked what I saw from everything on tape. I watched Clemson, Bama, Tennessee, and Auburn, and obviously he wasn't played at the edge position full force. You know, a lot of his production was all over the field. He was kind of slotted in different ways. You know, I don't know if he's going to be a full-time edge from what I did see. Obviously, a team has to just kind of commit to that in order for that to be the case. He felt more like an off-ball linebacker to me. You know, although he didn't see a ton of coverage, I didn't see a ton of coverage snaps for him, so couldn't really get a great feel on if that would work out. But also at just like purely from the edge position, he's got a lot of bend. He was incredibly low against a lot of the bigger tackles, and he did a great job setting the edge against the run. He just didn't seem to really have a plan when it did come to the actual pass rush itself. He seemed to just kind of go full force, really try to use his size and muscle his way in. So I know he's kind of a raw prospect. He's 21 years old, and they see a lot of, he's another one of those guys, much like Abdul Carter, that gets the Micah Parsons comparison.
Yeah.
But there's a long road between what he currently is and that player, especially since now Dallas is kind of committed to him as an edge more than what he initially was coming into the league, where he was a linebacker used in different flex situations. And he was kind of that complete player coming out because he was a great inside linebacker, he was a great outside linebacker, and he could cover when needed on running backs and tight ends. So I'm really curious to see who takes him, what they commit to him as, because there's obviously um, a lot of work to be done in that realm.
Yeah, I absolutely hate the Micah Parsons comparison for all these boys because you have like what, two or three of them in this class. Like obviously Abdul Carter, I get it, but it's just not fair, man. You can't. I understand why because it's the lazy, easy analysis. Oh, he played off-ball linebacker and he plays edge. He's Micah Parsons, and it's like, I mean, Micah Parsons. It sounds like he needs to watch more football based on what everyone's been saying. He needs to kind of focus a little bit more about football, whether it's Jerry or his ex teammates. And early in his career, they were saying he's the next Lawrence Taylor. You know what I mean? I just think that's an unfair expectation. I'm a realist with that type of shit. It's like we don't need to compare. You know, I saw the wide receiver, the 6'5" wide receiver that ran Thornton, Tennessee. Tennessee. This is worth a look because it's just wide receiver. He ran a 4.3 flat.
Interesting.
Let me just Dante Thornton. So Dante Thornton Jr. ran a 4.3 flat, and obviously there's engagement farming tactics, and he had a graphic with him and Calvin Johnson on it, and it was like people who are 6'5" and have run sub like 4.4, and it was Calvin Johnson and Thornton, and it's like, come on, man. You know, like Calvin Johnson was one of the more prolific prospects to come out at the wide receiver position for decades. You know, it's I don't know. I just hate that. So unfortunately for Jalen Walker, like it's just I get it. It's the lazy easy comp, linebacker, edge, this and that. Yeah, I just think that's unfair for anybody. Because I mean, even Abdul Carter and that motherfucker looks just like Michael Parsons running around in that number 11 playing for
Yeah,
him. So
it's hard to not make that easy comparison when he's wearing the same uniform and number.
yeah, it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult for there. So I'm gonna go as long as you're all good.
Yeah, that was my quick coverage on Walker.
Yeah, definitely sounds like I've been hearing him go a little higher as well because of that flexibility, you
Yeah,
know?
I did see something today coming into this that apparently there's been a lot of chatter out of New England, them being very interested in him as a prospect at number 4.
Inter-
So
At 4?
yeah,
That's high.
it is high. It is high. But I mean, we did get a lot of that chatter coming into the draft season with him kind of moving his way up. There was a lot of talk with Jacksonville,
Okay.
with a lot of the kind of insiders saying that he was a possibility there. So I mean, Jacksonville's picking 5. Once again, I know we said this at about Membo going to the Patriots when he's kind of ranked really low in a lot of rankings. We felt that he could go number 4 to the Patriots. He could easily go number 3 to the Giants, and with that logic, so I mean, it's not really out of the realm of possibility that the Patriots could take Walker at 4 when he's kind of in that same range with a lot of people are talking about him to Jacksonville.
I guess too with after a certain amount of people, it's very difficult. Like it's what Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and that's it. Everyone else is more or less a I don't know. I've been hearing. I mean,
Yeah,
shit. Even some of
it's
the
a
people.
clear tier jump.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, who knows with all of that. I mean, shit. Trayvon Walker went one overall
Yeah,
over
1-1
80,
overall coming out of nowhere. Yeah,
and that completely blew our minds. I know both of us.
yeah,
I'd go with the guy that yeah, okay, his floor might not be as and not that Walker isn't a bad player. He's solid, but so I'm gonna go. I guess back to front. I'm gonna go with Donovan
okay,
Ezra for my next one.
okay,
I'll save baby Micah Parsons for last.
yeah,
Keep the people around because they haven't heard enough about Abdul Carter yet. Donovan Izaraku, he is quick as a hiccup, man. And I love that saying. Shout out old football coaches. Or I guess any sports coach. He's quick as a hiccup. He has one rep against Missouri, which he does. Granted, it was against a tight end and a running back, but still, he did a double swim over the tight end, swim over the running back, applies a bunch of pressure. He has a high motor. His flexibility with stand up or hand in the dirt, which a couple of the guys, it seemed like a lot of, I don't know if you saw that with the guys that you watched, but it seems like a lot of the guys are kind of like not one or the other. They all have some flexibility with the hand in
yeah.
the ground.
I think the only guy that I saw that was pretty consistently just like pin his ears back going was Pierce. Pierce was the one that was like,
Four
um,
in a 4 point stance, just raring to
yeah,
go.
yep.
He's got
But
that.
yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a lot of flexibility in this top end of the draft.
Something I thought about Ezraku as well. Some of his, some of his, what am I trying to say? Some of his negatives were I mean, because he's small, he's 6'2", 247. I think that was what he weighed in at. So he's a little smaller. But he gets eaten up a little bit by bigger tackles, which made sense. I watched they actually ended up playing Missouri this year. So I was like, I wonder if he's going to line up over Membo. He unfortunately didn't for the majority of the game, which checks out. But there were a couple reps with the left tackle of Missouri where it's just hands on, clamped, it's done. And then another thing that I saw is maybe he can get a little bit better about kind of staying over his center of gravity because there were a couple times where he just like lost his footing out of he did his first move, got stopped, and then lost his footing and kind of got like pushed into the ground. So I don't know if that was a size differential thing because the left tackle at Missouri is enormous. Probably Membu size a little bit taller, and then, but yeah, he definitely needs more polish. But you're not expecting a guy out of Boston College to be the most polished guy ever. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
As far as all that goes. But no, he's fast as shit. Like I I definitely understand now why he's a first round pick. He wouldn't be my first edge taken, obviously, because that's Carter. But I think he warrants mid first round all day. If there's a run on edges and it's like Ezraku Green, some of those other guys, Stewart, depending on what you like.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed to be a really smart player. From what I saw, I didn't see a ton of his tape, unfortunately. But I do remember I did see him against FSU, and I remember being really impressed when I saw him in that game. I mean, there's a lot of. It's not like it used to be where there wasn't a lot of production coming out of a school like Boston College. Now you've got a lot of got a solid track record, especially with guys at that position with like Harold Landry, Matthias Kiwanuka, guys like that. Excuse me. So I mean he's got the production on the field too. He had 14 sacks this year, so I wouldn't doubt that he could translate. Even being undersized, I'm sure he could translate, even if he adds, a little bit of mass.
Yeah, he looks small, but he's not. He doesn't really play
No,
small. And honestly, one of my favorite parts about him is that he set the edge very well.
okay, good.
Very well for him being Sue. Granted, I do back in my day, crown to helmet to chin. If they're bigger than you, works very well to all you. I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again. It works very well for all you youngins, if any youngs are watching. Crown of the helmet to the chin works every time.
There you
If
go.
they're significantly larger than you. So yeah, full send. Just it's good old fashioned CTE. Bring yourself back to the early 2000s.
That's what the extra cushion's all about on the inside.
Exactly. Exactly. But
All
yeah,
right, I'm gonna keep it going with another Georgia boy. I know I started out with a Georgia boy. I'm gonna keep going with another Georgia boy. Michael Williams, much bigger than Jalen Walker.
much
Um, much much bigger. What I did notice, which I didn't know coming in, um, he wasn't just strictly an edge guy. There was a
interesting.
lot of inside out flexibility with him. It wasn't like a clean split between the two, but he had about 200 snaps on the outside and about 150 snaps over, um, you know, outside the tackle and then over the tackle.
Interesting.
So I found that really interesting because I mean he is bigger than a lot of these other guys. He's 6'5", 265. So I mean, at a little bit more weight, he could be, more of like a true 3-4
Yeah.
um,
And
defensive edge, like a team that has kind of bigger edge players on a 3-4 defense. So because he didn't have a ton of production as far as like sacks, hits, pressures. He averaged about like 6 sacks a year for an edge guy. That's not fantastic, especially on a defense like Georgia, because you're thinking even going back to 23, 22, like with the other guys that are on the defensive line, you would think he would at least like walk into maybe eight,
couple.
a
Yeah.
couple more. But in saying that, I mean, he's like like a very long prospect. Like he's just a big human being, and you could see that. And I know I said that he didn't really have the production as far as like sack production, pass rushing production. He's an elite run defender. So, I mean, at the very least, he's a more than capable starting lineman in this league, whether it's on the edge for a team that just needs somebody to set the edge and strictly do that, or if he's just a guy that, maybe from watching him, maybe he just needs to be put in a position where he needs to be that pass rusher because there weren't a lot of positions, like I said, because it was that like inside outside versatility. He was kind of bounced around a lot, and it didn't feel like they were really kind of having him pin his ear backs and go after the quarterback. He was in a lot of situations where he was setting the edge, depending on no matter where he was kind of setting that edge. I think he could grow into something different, but at the very least, like I said, he's an exceptional run defender, and he's a bigger edge. So I mean, he could very well be one of those guys that's a jumbo edge on a team like I don't know, like the Giants or somebody like that that needs somebody that can not only play run defense but also you know situationally rust the passion.
Definitely. Yeah, from what I did saw, saw, whatever from what I did see, he's got some heavy hands. He definitely uses his length well, and yeah, he's just I mean, and it's interesting because these Georgia players, how do you? How, it's difficult because it's like a crapshoot almost, right? You have Jalen Carter, immediate, probably best defensive lineman in the league. Then Aaron Donald retired, and then you have Jordan Davis, who like it took him a couple years to get going, but now he's being very like he's starting to. He's not elite, but he's starting to grow
He's
into
getting
his.
there. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
showing it.
yeah.
He's got the
Trayvon Walker,
flashes.
exactly. Trayvon Walker took a little while. So it's tough when you have that much talent and you're put in these weird, random, comparably situations, right? Because I don't know, it's difficult. It's difficult to kind of figure out and see yeah, where they're going to end up. But yeah, so Jalen or not Jalen Walker, Michael Williams up next. I'll just go to another. Well, I guess it's not Michael, but Mike Green.
Mike Green.
Yeah, the undersized at 6'4", 248. Everyone's saying. I keep seeing that, and I'm like, that's not. Yeah, he's not 260, but he's not like to think on an edge at 6'4", 250 is undersized to me is crazy.
Yeah,
But
not everybody can be JJ Watt.
it's wild. He is physical for his size. Obviously, the Connerly Bull Rush rep was nuts. I watched the Ohio State game, which he was pretty impressive in. You know what I mean? And then they played Virginia Tech as well, and those are the two games I kind of focused on because of just level of competition. You know, I wanted to see how he did against legitimate D1, not necessarily. Not that Marshall's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's there's a difference between Marshall and even like you know what I'm saying. There's
I do.
levels.
They're not the lower tier that they used to be. They're much
Yeah,
more respectable than they once were.
yeah, but also I'd like to watch them against Simmons. Uh, and stuff like that. Actually, I don't think Simmons was either way. It was a him, and then I think Simmons might have been injured.
Simmons was there against Marshall.
Okay, so yeah,
That was one of the limited games that he did have.
okay, that's what I was. I thought it was Simmons, but I didn't look at the number, and I was like, because Booker also not Booker. Booker's Alabama. I'm thinking of the guard that moved to tackle for you guys, Ohio State. I say that man, the Donovan Jackson. Sorry.
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah, because he has that versatility. He's not in our tackle ranking. Obviously, we didn't look at him as a tackle, but he has versatility as well. But yeah, Mike Green, I mean, physical as all hell. He's fast. The guys that I went over, which obviously Abdul Carter's in his next level, but the guys I went over, they're fast and they're not huge. They're not the like we were just talking about, but physical, high motor. I mean, it's really just pick who you want at that point, Zaraku and Green, because I've been seeing them mocked a lot around each other, and he can set the point at the edge. He can a couple plays where he got off the backside, which it's like okay, that's when you know you have speed when the edge makes the tackle off the backside of a run. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with Mike Green. Not surprised because everyone's been claiming he's a top 15 pick, and then you don't fall into 17 and a half sacks as
Right.
well. And I think he had quite a few tackles for loss too in there. Regardless of, like we said before with Zabel, I want to see you dominate when you're at a little lower level competition. And then I don't know if there's anyone that had which is impressive to say because this year there was 5, 6 crazy risers at the Senior Bowl, and Mike Green obviously that alone put him, on the map, and unfortunately did a lot more damage to Connolly.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think that helped.
yeah, it didn't help him at all. But Mike Green had made
Yeah,
himself
it
millions.
solidified what people were saying about him as being a first round pick. It solidified that for sure.
Yeah, because I mean it's all there. You see it, like he's not the most polished guy, but I don't. I think that's something that's easier to learn, I should say, when you get in because if he goes to Baltimore, you have Chuck Smith, or again, like we were talking about with the vets, right? So if he goes to I mean, if he goes to Cincinnati, say, and Trey Hendrickson's there, or if he goes anywhere where there might, I mean, if he goes, he wouldn't go to you guys, but the Saints, he can learn from Cam Jordan, and it's so I was, yeah, completely understand why he's being mocked everywhere from what 8 to 20 because he's as advertised. He's a little bit smaller, but you don't really see that on tape, and sets the edge well, flies like a bat out of hell, and just fucking he's a first round pick. So Who do we got next on your list?
So my final edge player would be James Pierce out of
Okay.
Tennessee. I watched a handful of games from his, and like I had mentioned in my other thing, he was just kind of one of those guys, pinned his ears back, speed to power. He was just he was elite. It was there was this was one of those guys who just kind of checked out. He was just unstoppable. In a lot of the ways that he approached everything. He has all the moves coming out. Like I said, speed to power. He bull rushed guys when he had to, chopped and spin. Everything was there. He did a solid job against coverage too. When I saw him drop into coverage in the couple of games that I watched,
Okay.
he's gonna be a solid outside linebacker, just like a true stand-up outside linebacker. He's athletic to drop into coverage, and he's a pure pass rusher. So I know it's a lot of the stuff that came out that he had kind of checked out or his heart wasn't into it, and all
It's
that
the
stuff.
worst person ever.
Yeah,
Worst
a lot of
trade of
that's
all
come
time.
out. A lot of people are like, good riddance coming out of Tennessee. And I mean, maybe that stuff is true. Who knows? Maybe any of that stuff. But I think coming into
Or
the NFL and going to the right place, could do wonders. Because if this is a guy, from what I watched, if this is a guy that's checked out, or the love wasn't there last year, having a 22% win rate and having the production that he had, I know he only had 8 sacks this year as opposed to the 13 the year before. I don't know if that's what they're trying to pass off as being checked out, not loving the game. I mean, who knows? He might have just gone up against some better talent the way it played out this year, because I mean he is playing
SEC.
in a better conference than most players coming into the draft. Um, but I have no concerns that this guy is going to be a quality NFL player. I mean, who knows? There's been better players that haven't worked out, but um, I wouldn't have any concerns for any team taking this guy in the first round. I think just what I saw on tape, I didn't see a guy that was half-assing it or checking out on certain plays or not giving it his all. He was definitely one of those guys that, like we said, he was 4 point stance, like putting his back into it and just bursting after those tackles and getting after the ball. Because not only was he going after the quarterback, he was going after the ball. He was making plays in the backfield against running backs. He was dropping into coverage. So this isn't like Hassan Reddick, who's just strictly going for the sack and gives up on all of their plays that don't have to do with getting after the quarterback. He was in every play. He was a guy that was getting after it. So I think he's a legit top 10 talent that somebody's probably going to get outside that because of the fact that the draft process took over and there was a lot of chatter about other stuff.
No, I mean, I think it's honestly, I think it's Howie Roseman. I think he's to blame. I think he's the one who's pitching all this nonsense about Pierce. And yeah, no, it's hard to take everything that comes out with like at face value because at the end of the day, one, they're kids, two, maybe he realized that Tennessee didn't actually have a shot, and then obviously they got out not pretty quickly, but towards the end of the year, what are you playing for if you're not going to the playoff, right? Because that's probably what they set out to do. And I'm not saying that that's
Yeah,
good, but I'm going to keep going back to having vets that are going to probably keep him in line and be like, no, no, no.
yeah,
Like, this isn't how we
right.
do this, especially if he goes to a place like the Eagles or the Lions or like any of those teams. I mean, shit, even if he went to Tampa Bay and stuff, you're going to have Vita Vea be like, not how we do it, not how we do it, bro. Like, this isn't
Yeah,
how we.
it's a very low likelihood because of the way the game is right now. There aren't a ton of garbage franchises, luckily, for a lot of these guys. I mean, he could very well end up with a bad franchise, but there aren't a lot of them right now. And lucky for him, a lot of the bad ones do draft at the top of the draft this year. So with his stock falling, he's probably going to end up in a good franchise because really the only garbage franchise that's picking near the bottom is what? I mean, Dallas is in the teens, so you don't really probably have to worry about them. And I mean, who knows outside of that? There's really not a ton of bad teams picking near the bottom. So, I mean, you don't really have to worry about an awful lot.
Because the Jags got rid of Balky, so there goes
Yeah, in the
their,
final.
yeah, I don't know why he was ever there for as long as he
Although they
was.
have a child now, so
Yeah, they have a child now, but then also, I mean, I believe the son is still the president of football operations, which I think might be a big crux of the issue. So, the
yeah,
con, and
yeah,
it's
the
like,
con man.
yeah, and then you have the Jets. We'll see. We'll see how hands-on Woody and
His
fuck, what was the
grandson,
kid's name? Yeah, his actual son.
his
I forget
actual son.
I forget the kid's name. They call him, yeah, whatever. I digress. But yeah, the one when they were saying he's not good on Madden, so let's not get him, even though Jerry
Yeah, they're
Judy.
worried about Madden ranking.
Yeah, which I get if you're using it to learn defenses and see
Yeah,
other
because
teams.
they do say that a lot of front offices have it built into their models, but like it can't be the one driving factor that's making you make or break a pick.
Especially when it's like Jerry Judy, you know?
Yeah,
That's why they
right.
didn't get Jerry Judy. And it's like you could have
Yeah,
gotten Jerry Judy for a fifth or Devontae. And I understand Devontae Adams is better. Objectively, not subjectively. Objectively better, but at the end of the
right,
day,
right.
when you end up with losing your second round pick and then yeah, I don't know. But yeah, to your point, there's because the Broncos were a bad one, and that seemingly has to change. The Chargers were a bad one. That seemingly changes. I don't want to say bad. Excuse me. I don't want to say bad organization, but they had Brandon Staley manning the helm, which was yeah, we know why or what that is. A waste of the start of Herbert's career. I mean, Cincinnati. But at the end of the day, they still have Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. As long as they have those guys, they're a poorly ran organization from top to bottom, but they still have the best triplet in the NFL. Miami, but even then, they still have two. Like, yeah, it's very difficult to think that. And then again, too, all of these teams have vets. They have people that are going to be like, "Hey, I haven't busted my ass for 12 years to not fucking." So I'm going to move forward with Abdul Carter,
Yeah,
the belle of the ball, number one overall pick if Cam Ward didn't exist or the Titans had a better front office and had a quarterback. He, like all of these guys, Mike Green, Ozaraku, all of these guys, Walker, like they're fast. Probably the fastest player on the team, in my opinion, or like one of the fastest players on the field because he's all over the field as advertised. He's making plays in the middle, breaking up passes over the middle of the field. He's just disruptive in the run game, whether that's he's playing from a backer position or from the edge. Like I was saying before, with the flexibility with the hand in the dirt, honestly, I think he's more explosive with his hand in the dirt. Not that he's not explosive, not with his hand in the dirt, because he's explosive either way. As I just poo pooed everyone or Micah Parsons comparison, he has special bend. He had this one rep that was just, I mean, it looked like Von Miller, which, I mean, he already has to be Lawrence Taylor 3.0, so we might as well throw another all time grade in there, right? Um, but yeah, no, he's as advertised. He's in my opinion, the best player in the draft because I don't know, man. Edge defenders, you're not going to find many even in the NFL that are capable of what he's capable of and he's just fast, dude. He's fast as hell. Like unbelievably fast for how and he's another small guy as all of these other people are saying. So he's 6'3", 250. So obviously he's tiny for edge. He's not big enough to play edge or middle backer, even though he's bigger than half the middle linebackers in the league. But I think it's going to be difficult to find a spot for him because he's so good at both. I thought he was very good as a middle backer, and he's just unbelievable when he's allowed to pin his ears back and just go. And then as a run defender, he sets the edge really well. He's super physical for being again undersized and stuff like that. I mean, it's you put on the tape and it makes sense why he's been mocked, why he was the number one overall player, and now things have shifted because Hunter's gone up a little bit. Ward, obviously, everyone needs a quarterback in the top three. It's yeah, it just makes sense, and I it's fucked up, but I understand why he's getting compared to Micah Parsons because he is that dominant, and he's that dominant on a defense full of dominant players. That's the thing. It's not like Mike Green, where he's the only player on that team, and you're like, or Ezeraku, and he's the only player on that team. He is on a dominant football team with a lot of dominant players, and
Yeah.
regardless of who's on the field, whoever they play, he's the best player on the field. It's very rare, unless Ohio State, he plays Jeremiah Smith. But I think that speaks to the level of eliteness that Mr. Carter had in Penn State. I forgot what their colors are called, the blue and white or whatever, but they have a specific. I don't know. I'm just being dumb.
I know what
Trying
you
to
mean.
yeah, trying to say stupid shit. But yeah, it's as advertised, man. That's that's all I can say about Abdul Carter. He's
I would
un,
agree.
unbelievable, an unbelievable player, and I think he's going to make. I he should go to three if the Browns want Hunter. He should go to two if it. Yeah, I don't know. I he is unbelievable for the fifth time. So
Yeah. It'll be a travesty if he's there at 4 when the Patriots pick.
because
He should not get past the Giants.
they have to take him at four. If
Oh yeah,
Carter's
absolutely. I'm just
if
saying, like, realistically, the Giants should be as far as he goes. Because realistically, like, we already know the Titans are taking Ward. That's not a
yeah,
question.
the
The
prophecies.
Browns, it depends on who they think the best player available, the true best player available is. If they think Hunter is the best player available, or if they think Carter's the best player available. So fine, whatever. I'll bite on that. I think Carter's the best player available, but if they think Hunter is that, like, generational talent, which I don't really feel like there's any generational talent in this draft, but if you think Travis Hunter is that generational talent, then yeah, okay, I'll bite. You take him there. But the Giants should be as far as Carter falls.
Yeah,
If they take anybody else but Carter, it's insane. It's just not.
I don't
Because, like,
care.
if Carter went to the Browns at 2, I could give the Giants a little breathing room as far as, like, if they decided, like, we don't want to go with Hunter, we're going to go with somebody else. I would be absolutely fine with that because if you think if you think he's a wide receiver and you don't necessarily need more wide receivers on that roster, I could buy into that. If you're like, oh, we like Mason Graham, we like Membo as a right tackle, or whatever else. If they're one of those teams that's suddenly all in on, like, Jalen Walker, I could buy into all of that. Like, granted, I would want Hunter as a number 2 next to Neighbors, but
100%.
I think number three should be as far as Abdul Carter falls. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to say fall and talk number 3, but when you're clearing away the number 1 player in the draft, you still have to say it, even if it's the second or third pick.
Yeah, because I mean, in like Schoen needs to be sent to the sun if he chooses someone over Carter because Thibs or he's more Burns like. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
You
It
want
doesn't matter.
you want good football players, and
Find a place to put him.
yeah, yeah, because
Like you said, he can play middle linebacker because he's still bigger than both of the Giants' middle linebackers. He's bigger than McFadden. He's bigger than Okereke, and they're also saying they don't really like from what the rumors are. They don't really like.
which is interesting.
Okereke. So it's like, who knows? They could easily just slide him in there and cut him and whatever. But like, it's like one of those things where like find a place because
Yeah,
like that NASCAR package would be ridiculous.
yeah,
Having Tibbs, having Carter, and having Dexter Lawrence all on that line.
yeah. Good luck.
Good luck. Somebody's getting through, and
I mean,
probably two guys are getting through at the
so
very
again,
least.
to touch on your like, he's bigger, he's a larger human than he's larger human than the Giants middle linebackers. He's because middle linebackers aren't what they used to be. Two
No, they're
fifty.
not.
Very. I mean, Fred
Yeah,
Warner. Fred Warner plays at 220.
right.
You know what I mean? You
They're
have
pretty agile guys.
yeah.
They're
I mean,
more
because you
finesse than everything because they have to cover far more agile human being athletes than they used to.
yeah, you get
Uh,
fucking Roquan on Lad McConkey 1-on-1, and it's like, oh
yeah.
no, oh no, where's Kyle Hamilton with the help, or just anybody? Fred Warner on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Name a shifty slot receiver guy.
Yeah. And just the tight ends now too.
Well,
I
shit. I
mean,
mean, this
it's
tight end.
very rarely are there like just these like, cement-footed tight ends that can't outplay a tight end on coverage. Like most of them can now.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
safeties and
it's
cornerbacks, they're either too big for corners, too small for safety. They're either too big for corners and too fast for safeties now, And especially with this draft class coming in, you have Tyler. Like this might have five guys that are now vying for the top five spots in the NFL because
yeah,
Kelsey's on his way out.
yeah.
This tight end class is nuts. Arroyo's a stud. You have Mason Taylor, who I don't know if you didn't watch much LSU, obviously, because I had Will Campbell, but he pops up on tape. He seemed to be pretty fucking good. So,
Yeah. And the
um,
bloodline's there.
yeah, Dad was. I don't know if you guys knew this, listeners, but Dad was pretty good at football. I believe he's a Hall of Famer.
And still probably could be today.
Yeah, honestly, right? Guy looks the fucking same. Jason Taylor just terrorizing the AFC East for what, 12 years, 14
Yeah.
years, something crazy.
Yeah.
Him and Zach Thomas. Um, but yeah, to wrap that up, Abdul Carter is Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas wrapped up in one. So there we go. Two more Hall of Famers that you need to be compared to, Carter.
Got
So
them
now
all.
you have to be Lawrence Taylor 3.0. You're the next Micah Parsons because he's obviously a Hall of Famer. And now you have to be a combination of Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor
Yeah.
to put a bow on it.
A melting pot.
Yeah, it's perfect. You get some whites, get some, Um, uh, yeah, so we're off the rails. Obviously, we've been going for a little bit. But yeah, no. So this kind of concludes the end of the edges. As far as tackles go, obviously we did that too. Let us know what you think. Drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
Want to hear from our fan.
Yeah, our fan. His name's Connor. He's my friend. That sounds like a joke, but it's kind of true. He's a good friend of mine, but doesn't know shit about football, but he's learning with us. He's gonna grow with us too.
It's good to have you, Connor.
But yeah, so that rounds up everything. Stay tuned for next week. I believe we're gonna do quarterbacks and running backs.
Yes, sir.
A little teaser. So stay tuned for next week. Same time. Same relative time. Definitely the same places. Coast
Same
to coast.
guys.
Same guys. Same guys. Same guys. Same places. Same relative time. So these are all things. I appreciate you guys taking the time to grow with us. We will get better. We know this show stinks, and hopefully one day it won't, in the words of Pat McAfee. But anyone who spends
We're
time with us,
trying.
we greatly appreciate you. Yeah, Jack, fuck you. I'm just kidding. But Yeah, thanks for watching. Next week, got the pod. Thanks for watching again for the fourth time. Uh, oh,
Good
have a
night.
good day, everybody.
Good night,
Bye.
Connor.
Good night, Connor.